What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Musings podcast studio. I am joined today by somebody I consider to be a true modern master of art, Mr. Ryan Benjamin. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Modern
Awesome.
master.
I
Cool.
consider you a modern master. I have my list of people whose, mastery of illustration is up there, and you are among those people.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I
Appreciate
know
it.
you're
Thank
a
you.
humble guy, but anybody that's seen you work, it's a thing of beauty.
You know, I kind of recognize that, and I realize I can use my art to attract a specific crowd. So
Yes,
I think I've kind of mastered that. So
it definitely resonates. Your love of art, it has to go back a long time. I mean, when you were a little kid, I know we've chatted a little bit before at cons and things. I get the impression you were probably the kid that was grabbing the crayons and drawing on the walls and that kind of stuff. Is my impression there correct?
definitely, that was me. I was always doing something artistic and creative when I was a kid. As far as grabbing stuff and drawing, I would grab my sister's notebooks,
Okay.
and so I would wait till the end of the year. So when at the end of the year, when they're done with school, they're not using the notebooks anymore. So on the back would have a ton of blank pages, and that was my material. I would take it and start drawing on all those pages.
Awesome.
So that
So
was
just
me.
in like ruled like school notebooks, that
Yep,
type of stuff.
with the lines. Yep. And I would just go in and start drawing all throughout the pages.
Now, was it comic inspired drawing, or were you just drawing whatever from your imagination at that point?
A little bit of everything. I was into drawing comics. I was very much into my dad's kung fu magazines.
Oh yeah,
He had this magazine where it showed you all these different forms, and one of them was like a guy kind of standing like this,
yep.
and
Overhead
yeah,
block,
he was like an
umbrella
overhead
block.
block, but
Yes, sir.
he had the other hand like this, and I would trace that, and I would trace it, and then turn that into like my own characters. I'd turn that to Batman, Superman, whoever
That's
it was.
awesome.
So I remember
So you
that.
already you already kind of drawing from reference without even really thinking of it in that
Yep,
regard.
yep. I used to do that, and eventually He-Man back in the
Okay.
day. Okay, so you remember those He-Man toys?
Yep.
So those He-Man toys, how muscular they are, I would use that for muscle reference. And then I started to, I would turn from drawing from the karate book into drawing the He-Man toys. And then that kind of kept growing and growing. So,
Man, you were innovating before now they sell the little 3D printed guys for people to be able to pose for art
yep,
reference and
yep,
everything.
yep. And I was already
We
doing
had
that.
our Star Wars figures and our He-Mans and all of that we were doing that with.
Yeah, I was like 8 years old doing this already. So,
Yeah. Now, when it came to comics, when did your love of comics spark off?
back in the day, I remember my sister. She was the tip of the spear that kind of sucked me into the comic world. It started off with the Archie comics back in the day, and she would read it all the time, and then I ended up reading them, and then eventually I picked up on the Tarzan comics back in the day, and I started reading those. Mm. And then from there, that's when I was introduced to my mom had this giant book with Rockwell's art,
Oh, yeah.
and so I would look at his art and see how he would do things and just get inspired from that. So it was a combination of looking at these master painters to the comic book world, and just kind of going back and forth between both.
So you had an appreciation for fine art as well.
Yeah. So I would look at a lot of Norman Rockwell, look at Frazetta stuff, and just I was already seeing this because back in the day when we had the giant encyclopedias,
Yep.
so we had all those, and I was looking, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Look at that. Look at all these different artists in there.
When our encyclopedia wasn't inside our phone.
Exactly. These kids today, they have it so easy. It's so easy.
Hey man, remember when people would go door to door selling those
things?
Yeah,
I remember.
Your parents got a set, and then you're like, oh, cool, pull it out.
I totally remember.
A word. Yeah.
Yep.
So with the comics, the art inspiration, and all of this, at what point did it kind of hit you that you wanted to pursue this as a career? Did you kind of know from out the gate, like, hey,
no,
art is it for me? It's something related to art is what I'm going to do when I grow up.
The first hits I had of this was when I was maybe 9. No, I was 12. I was on the playground with a bunch of friends, and we were playing, war or cowboys and Indians or whatever it was. And then I remember us all sitting here thinking, talking about what are we going to do when we get older. And I remember telling my friends that I'm going to write a book, but I have no idea how to do it. All I know, I wanted to get into publications, just get into that, right? But I had no idea how to do it. And then I kept that going all the way through middle school, high school, even college. When I was in college, all I knew is that I can draw, but I have no idea what I wanted to do. It wasn't until the last day of school, we were all sitting there. I was sitting in class with these names. You guys probably know him, with Brett Booth.
Oh yeah, just that guy.
Yeah, that guy. So Brett and I were in class together. So I was sitting in class with Brett Booth and Sean Ruffner. And some of you guys will remember Sean from the early days of WildStorm. He was around. He was one of the writers that was there. He actually wrote Backlash and a couple of the books. And we were all sitting together. And then that's when Brett Booth pulled out a series of books, a series of comic books. And one of them was Jim Lee's X-Men #1.
Nice.
And my eyes flipped open, like, who is this guy? And they were like, he was like, it's Jim Lee. And I'm like, who's Jim Lee? And then he gave me the full story and told me all about. I didn't even know Image Comics existed at that time. And he was like, yeah, this is who he is, and this is what's going on, and I'm going to go work for them. I'm like, okay, if you're going to do this, I'm thinking to myself, I can do this.
Yeah.
If he can do it, I know I can do it, because I was in like the top 3 artists of the entire college. So I went on, and I that's when I decided I'm just going to sit at home and just keep practicing until I get this job. It took me 6 months of just sitting at home, doing nothing, absolutely nothing, but drawing and sleeping, drawing and sleeping, drawing. It was sort of like the UFC camp.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like that. So you get in there and you get into a little room where you just,
like,
everyone's sitting.
You want to get good at something. That actual
get
thing,
in there,
right?
Yeah, yes, and so it was like that. But I did it at my apartment, and this is a true story. I'll close it out with this one. One day I was sitting at home and I was just drawing like normal, and my phone rings. The old push button phones.
Yep.
It rings. I picked it up. It's Jim Lee. He was like, "Hey, I like your art. I want you to come. I'm going to try you out and have you come down to my studio, come work for me." I said, yes, let's do it. So I went down to the front office of my apartment complex, and I told him, hey, I have to leave. I have to break my lease because I have a job that's coming and I have to fly out of here. I was in Miami at the time.
Yeah.
I said, I have to leave and I have to head out there and I have to work. They said, you can't just break the lease and say, if you do, you have to pay the entire thing. I say, how much do I
Yeah.
owe? They said, you owe like, I think it was like $4,000 or $7,000 or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have that money. Where am I going to pay that all that up to you guys? The lady looked at me like this.
Yeah, exactly.
And all that's going through my head is like, this woman is making about $4.50 an hour, and she's trying to stop me from building my future. It's not
Yeah.
happening. It's not happening. So I looked at her. I told her, thank you. I went back to my apartment. I looked at my roommate. Pack your stuff. You're leaving. Pack your stuff. You're leaving. I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here. My roommate was like,
Wow.
okay. And then that was it. It was that easy. And then we cleaned out our apartment, made sure it was spotless, rented a U-Haul, threw everything in there. I took my stuff to my mom's house, jumped on a plane, and I left. And then next thing you know, it showed up on my credit report
Oh yeah.
a couple years and a couple months down the road. They were looking for me, and I'm like, I'm done with this apartment. I'm just gonna leave. Like,
So
how are they gonna stop me?
you went all in, man. From just not only obviously that's a big commitment, like making that decision to leave, but just the fact that you were kind of approaching it like you already had the job.
Yep.
In the fact that you were working on your art dedicated for that 6-month period or whatever leading up to this.
I put a laser focus on it. I told myself, I'm going to get this job. And that was the only thing I did. I lived, eat, and breathe comics. That was it. And I made sure I was getting it.
It's interesting because Jim has a similar story. I remember hearing that Jim kind of did the same thing when he decided he was going to do it. He treated it like a job and would get up in the morning, start drawing, draw all day, go to bed, get up, start drawing, Yeah, that level of commitment and focus, it is one of these things where people ask the secret, what's the secret to getting good at this or to breaking in and this and that? And it's like, well, number one, you got to be willing to put in that dedication, that work and that time, right?
Yep. That's true. Yeah. You have to.
So you're packed up. You got, how did you convince your roommates? Was it easy to convince them? They're like, hey, we're out of here, guys.
Well, we were all struggling.
Okay.
And my roommate was you remember I mentioned Sean Ruffner?
Yeah.
It was his girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
So I was roommating with her, and I told her, hey, you move back with your parents. And then my ex-girlfriend was there too.
Okay.
So I told her, you're moving back with your parents. And both of them said, okay, great. It was kind of like, the Three's Company, type that TV show. It was me and two girls, bunking together,
Yep.
It was like that. And she was like, okay. It was that easy.
Wasn't too much resistance then.
It was zero resistance.
And then you're on a plane.
Yep.
And it had to be so surreal. Like, did you believe it was actually Jim when he called you? Did you have that little double take moment? Or
well, no, I knew it was Jim. When he mentioned Jim, I had no reason not to believe him. I just knew it was him, and he told me after he spoke, he basically told me he's going to have someone else call me, and this was before email.
Yes.
This was before email was around. So he was like, he'll have someone call me, and then they'll get me a plane ticket and everything. And they got me the plane ticket. They flew me out. It's been history ever since.
Now this was in the fairly early days of WildStorm.
Yes. Yeah. This was in 1993.
Yeah.
When this happened. So
we're still in the prime kind of image boom time where all the studios, like, WildStorm and Extreme and all them are like doing their talent hunts and trying to bring on new artists and things.
Yes. It was all in that era. I think I was part of the second wave. Brett Booth, Scott Clark, Trevor Scott, Sandra Hope, they were all part of the first wave. And I was part of the second wave. I came in with Dan Norton, Travis Charest, Who else was there? There were a couple of the
Was
people. I can't think.
Richard Friend there
Richard,
at that
Richard.
time?
No, I think he came in with me. He came in that wave with
Okay.
me. He either came in like the same year or maybe a couple months or something before me.
Gotcha.
But he came in. Yeah, so we were all there, and so imagine going to the studio and the Scar Clark's over there, Jeff Campbell's over there, or Travis
Yeah.
Charest is over there, or, I'm sitting there, Brett Booth is over there, Jim Lee's over there, we were all just sitting together and just drawing comics.
Little side tangent. It's interesting you mentioned Dan Norton because Dan's from here, and I used to take a little drawing class from him that he taught out at one point. McFarlane owned or co-owned 2 comic shops here in Washington called Spider's Web Cards and Comics, and there was one in Federal Way, and Dan would do a little drawing class a couple days a week out there. So I'd go and hang out, and he would critique our drawings and show us kind of all the stuff that you ignore when you're a young artist, like, oh, this structure thing, oh, these gestures. I just want to draw this cool big guy with all this rendering. No foundation.
No
right?
foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have a few of his drawovers he did for me or examples he did for me. So that's really cool. Like, you guys are all in there, and it had to be, now that you've arrived, there had to be a lot of learning on the job that took place.
Yeah, it's nonstop. I mean, because when I came in at that time, some Silvestri was there. Silvestri, Nick Manabat was there.
So that's before they split.
Yeah, this was
Top
before.
Cow, right?
Yeah, Top Cow split with WildStorm. Because at that time it was Homage Studios.
Yes.
And so I came in and they were all there, and I mean, can you imagine coming in and there's Mark freaking drawing Cyberforce right there. It's like mind blowing. The pages. I'm like, I just saw this in the comic game. I come to the studio and the originals was sitting right here. It's like that. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. It was pretty nuts.
So I have some of your early stuff you did for WildStorm, and I know you because you've shown samples and things just so everybody can see, like, hey, this is where I started, and so you get in there and you're at WildStorm. What's the first thing that they kind of put you on to hone your skills?
Well, day one, Jim was like, just sit and draw whatever. So I just sat and they had like stacks of blank boards, and I just grabbed a couple and started drawing. And then Jim came back and he was like, hey, here's a character. I want you to draw this guy. And it was Brass.
Oh yeah.
The character Brass. So he told me to draw Brass. I still have that original sitting somewhere in my stash of art. I still have that.
Nice.
So Jim was like, just draw Brass. I started drawing. And then after that, that's when they came to me and they said, okay, we want you to, we're going to put you on a book called a Soldier Story. And they wanted me to draw the pages for that. So Jim did a really quick layout, and he told me, okay, here's a script, start drawing. And I started drawing. And, he would come by and supervise them up to checks. It was kind of nerve wracking at the time.
Yeah.
Because Jim was watching me, while I'm drawing. So it was kind of like that. And then eventually they put me on Gen 13-0. And then right after that, that's when I did Union.
Yep.
No, I think I did. I did Union.
Union, yeah.
And then right after that, that's when I jumped into the Grifter series and I started doing that. So it took a little bit of time for me to get better and better.
Yeah. And Jim is right there, kind of. It sounds like he was very accessible as far as kind of mentoring the artists that were in there, the younger artists.
Yeah. I mean, he was. We all worked in the same area, so
yeah,
we all saw each other all the time, every day.
Well, it's really cool because I feel like I feel like you've carried a lot of that over with what you do because, I'll speak for myself, and I know my friend Sia Ohm, she's always spoken very highly of you, how much you've helped her. You've always helped me at any con I come to. I'm having trouble drawing something. You break out your paper and you demonstrate, and you're carrying over that kind of mentoring role on a larger scale because I've seen you help a lot of people. Did you kind of like take a little bit of inspiration from what Jim did with you guys in that regard?
Definitely. One of the things that really stuck to me was, I'd say about once a year, Jim would pull each one of us into his office and just rip our arms out, or rip our legs off, put us in a headlock.
Yeah.
I'm talking proverbially. So,
Yes.
he would do all this stuff, and we would walk out of that office and we didn't even feel like drawing anymore. We're like, oh God. It's like, you walked out of feeling like your art is crap and you have to improve,
Right.
so you're forced into this situation of getting better and better and better. So I picked up a little bit of that. So now when I critique people, I learned, you can't you can't soft foot it. You have to, you got to get in there. You have to chop them up. Can't sugarcoat it. You got to let people know this is off. This is bad. I do it today to my kids. My kids are like, my daughter's like, oh, look, the good dad. Look, she did this little cute picture. I was like, your lines are horrible. Go fix it. And she would look at me like, I'm like, yeah, go fix those horrible lines.
Like, this one's not going up on the fridge.
Not gonna pass me on this one. So I'm gonna push her.
Well, that brutal honesty, it's definitely, I think it's important, especially for people that are trying to get into the comic book industry, because better to have somebody you respect as an artist, tear you apart and give you that input than maybe editor or something that doesn't really understand art. So I think there's got to be that benefit to having somebody with your pedigree or your portfolio, whatever you want to call it, to be able to give that, because you're speaking from experience.
I am. And this is important. When I speak and I critique people, I'm not speaking from a high horse. I am speaking, this is just pure experience that I'm giving you. And if the energy I'm giving you, I've sort of expected back, meaning if someone looks at my art and they want to rip my art apart, trust me, I'm not going to take it to heart. I know my craft. So when you rip it apart, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm seeing something that someone else is seeing. So that means I have to improve that. So that means now I know I'm going to be like, thank you. I'm going to put that on the back of the shelf, and I promise I'm going to keep an eye out for it as I'm drawing on the next one and the next one and the next one. So you're
still trying to evolve and improve constantly, as well, just like anybody else, constantly. Right?
Yeah. When I'm 90 years old, art. That's the thing about art. You never stop learning, ever. AI is total proof of this. You're just never going to stop learning how to expose yourself and draw, and the competition that's out there. It's constantly changing, constantly evolving. So you have to stay on your toes.
Yeah. You have to stay on your toes, and I'm sure like you probably push yourself outside your comfort zone quite often too to help spur growth, right? Like, yes. That's something I've been trying to do with myself. I remember telling you I was like afraid to ink stuff and all of that because the permanent feeling of it. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like, okay, that means I need to practice inking more, and now it's like the inking's starting to look somewhat nice. So now I'm like, I'm afraid to put color on stuff. Maybe I should play around a little bit with color.
It's good to practice all that behind the scenes, but don't put any of that in your portfolio, because if it's shaky, it's rocky, I guarantee it's going to bring your portfolio down.
Absolutely.
But keep practicing it. When you go home and you want to ink, go practice inking. You want to color, go practice coloring, because that's the only way you're going to get good at it. You're not going to get good at it by watching videos and just kind of hoping one day it kicks in. You need to get in there and do the groundwork That's the only way you're gonna get good.
And I'm assuming you would recommend a aspiring creator to, pick an area of focus. Like, hey, I want to be a penciler, so I'm mainly working on my penciling
Mhm.
and presenting, that as the majority of what's in my portfolio,
Yep.
and not being all over the place with, really great pencils, but now here's some subpar inks I put over my pencils that made it look like garbage.
Yeah. So yeah, you definitely want to put a laser focus on what you want. And I always recommend and tell people, um, you want to practice everything, but put a laser focus on one specific thing because that's what's going to get you a foot in the door.
Yeah.
If you want to be an inker, put a laser focus on inking, but don't stop penciling. Just keep practicing your penciling because you still have to understand how to ink pencils, and you have to understand form because there are some inkers out there that don't understand form because they don't pencil. They don't
Yeah.
understand lighting and shading and texturing because they don't pencil. So if you don't understand it, then you won't. When you're inking a rock and you're inking a tree, you're inking hair, you're going to ink it all the same. You can't, so you have to think about what am I inking? What's going on here? Is this a shirt or is this metal? You have to think of these things. So, it's just part of the game. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and you definitely carried over this mentoring into something really cool in the Comic Pro Bootcamp.
hmm
Now that started as an in-person type of thing that I was super sad I couldn't make it to for all these years because it's in San Diego and usually around Comic-Con time and everything. Um, did the seed of inspiration from that come to come from the demand you were seeing for a resource like that being available where people could, be around the pros and get their work torn apart and all of that?
that was probably the earliest seed of it, but it didn't really kick in until one day. I think it was in the early days of Facebook. I put out a message and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for 5 students," and I told them I'm looking for 5 students, 5 people who wants to draw comics. I will review their work, blah blah blah. Send me your portfolio. I had 200 people send me stuff
Wow.
in 24 hours, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's some hunger out there, something. So that's what started my brain cooking, and then later on, it really didn't start cooking in until I had this really cool idea to expand and hey, let me create a platform where I'm teaching stuff, and then I pitched that to some people know who he is, but I pitched it to John Nee, and John Nee was like, "That's the best idea you've ever had," and then that's all I needed to hear, and then
Nice.
I took off and I called Wills. He was the very first person I called, and I was like, "Hey, Wills, this is something I've been thinking about doing. I just spoke to John about it, blah, blah, blah." And Wilson's like, "Hey, I used to teach in the Philippines. I had a
That's what I
school,
was
blah, blah."
gonna.
And I was like,
Yeah, I was gonna
so,
say he probably had a little experience because
oh
I
yeah,
remember he was doing that over in the Philippines. He
yep,
was doing like some art instruction.
yep. That's how he found Linyo Yu and a
Yep.
couple of the artists. So I was like, "Hey, dude, let's put our heads together and let's build this." And he said, "Yeah, let's do it." And then that's when I contacted Alex and Claire next, and Alex was like, "Yeah, I used to teach too," and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So he came on board, and then I got a hold of Carlos Deanna, and Carlos was like, "Yeah, I'm down, Benjamin." He calls me Benjamin all the time. So he's
Yeah.
like, "I'm down, Benjamin. Let's do it." So he came on board, and then so it was us four kind of doing the thing. So
So you kicked it off, and the how was the in person response when you did your first in person get together? Did it fill up very quickly?
oh yeah, it filled up quick. I was kind of nervous, like, oh man, how many people are going to sign up for this? But people signed up, and we had a good amount of people. I think I'm possibly, I think we had like 24 people that signed up for this class. And I was shocked like how many people we had. And then we had a student that flew in from Canada with her dad. She's like
Wow.
15 or something, and her dad and her brother flew out here, and she was taking a workshop while they were running around. This was in LA,
Yeah.
while they were running around in LA doing stuff. And then I think we had someone from Australia that flew in for this.
That's amazing.
Some people from Mexico, they flew in for this, and they came in just to hang out. But a good amount of people came straight from LA and a couple other the other areas. We had people from the East Coast for like other classes. They flew in other parts of the country. They would come in and they want to take the workshop. So,
Do you find that instructing helps you improve as an
oh,
artist? Because
absolutely.
I know for me with jujitsu, when I started teaching jujitsu, I saw jujitsu in a whole different light, and it also it makes you have to be honest with yourself, because I remember back when I was like a purple belt teaching jujitsu, and I'm like, I caught myself at one point, like I'm telling them, okay, you need to do this detail and this here and this fundamental. And then I'm thinking, I'm like, I kind of skip some of those things. I'm not doing the thing I'm telling them to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the cool thing is that when you're breaking down the steps, you get to reflect on it and reflect on it and reflect on it, and you get to modify it. You're like, oh, this is a cool way. How about they twisted this way, twisted this, and then you fine tune it. You start to throw away stuff that doesn't work, and you start to
Right.
keep the stuff that works. And you're like, this is it. This is the core of it. Focus on this part and this, and then everything else is just an adaptation or your interpretation of this. That's literally what it came down to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, definitely. I get inspired by like I tell everybody, like I enjoy sparring with white belts, because sometimes white belts will try stuff I never even thought of because they don't know it's wrong. But sometimes they do something really cool and you're like, "Oh, I might take that for myself and implement it in my game." Yeah.
oh,
There's a lot of crossover between martial arts and art. As you know, we've talked about before, you got a little background in martial arts as
oh yeah,
well. So,
yeah. 20
you,
years in Muay Thai. 20
yeah.
years.
So you see those correlations as well. Um, when it comes to the boot camps, it started out in person, but then inevitably it had to scale to be able to reach people across the world. So, how many of the in-person, camps had you done prior to opening up and starting developing that idea for the online?
The one
Okay.
we
So you
did
knew right
one,
away.
and then we knew like, okay, yeah, we need to push this. And while we were planning to do that, we were in communications. That's when COVID hit. So we were literally forced into the online thing. We're like, we have no choice. We have to immediately do it.
You had to pivot. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went towards that route, and we had about 3 years to sort of perfect it, because there was a lot of trial and error.
Yes.
So we did what we had to do. We did it back to back in certain times. So we would do it, take a month off, do it again, take a month off, do it again, kind of like that. And then eventually, after about 3 years of doing that, we had tons of archived footage and all this material. And we have plans to do something with it, but basically, um, we had to come back in person, because when the restrictions started to lift off, we're like, okay, it's time to bring it back in person. We came back in person, and
Yeah.
it was still moving strong. It was this hunger that's out there. It's still there. That's the thing I learned, at this hunger is never going to die. It's never going to go
No.
away. No matter what happens to in the industry, the direction of comics, the hunger will always be there. So you have to feed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you even have people, like me, who's, kind of gave up on that dream of being a professional book artist for my livelihood due to my path in life changing and in getting the jujitsu, jujitsu school and doing that full time, and that my branch and my timeline went. But you got guys like me who are, I'll be 48 this year, and I still have that drive and that want to get on there and do the classes. So it is really true. It's not something that I don't think is ever going to go away. If the person has that passion for art, they're gonna. There's always going to be that demand, right?
Yeah, it's always going to be there. The passion was around back in the Michelangelo days.
Yeah.
I mean, these Renaissance artists they've always been there. If you think about it, and this is something I learned, because I went to Italy and I went to a ton of different museums, and after going from tour to tour to tour, you start to learn and start to pick up on certain things, and you start to see this pattern that back then there wasn't much to do. So art was pretty much like a craft that you would have like a ton of people doing, and there were all these masters that are out there that no one even knows who they are. And there's all these amazing sculptures. And this was developed by this person, that person, that person, and no one knows who it is. And then there's one or two of them, or like say 10 of them that are like the extreme masters that stand out of the rest. But if you look at the others, they're pretty much on par with them. So you like, they must have been like the amount of carpenters they were there, and all these different people that were just, because that's all they had to do was just make stuff. That was it. So when you're exposed to that, you don't have the internet, you don't have access to other modern technologies. You're forced into this specific craft and you master it, So that's what it's always been there. The hunger has always been there. It's just that it's evolved and it's changed depending on the technology and the craft and the need for it. And so it's been going all the way till today. You'll see it. It's constantly evolving, constantly changing. That's why I say, when I'm 90, I'm still going to be learning, and the things I'm teaching today, I'll still be teaching it at 90, because it's going to be the same technique, the same thing Michelangelo and Renoir and all these guys did back when they were doing their stuff. Salvador Dali back in the day. All these things. We still use it to this day.
Yes.
You still use it, it's never going to change.
We still use it. And, through things like what you've created, the accessibility to the instruction and in the mentoring is, I mean, in the times we live in, there's so much accessibility and the availability of art courses and everything else to continue to feed that passion.
Exactly.
And, the next evolution of the boot camp is now you did a successful Kickstarter, and we got the books and things coming.
It's in production, so it's coming. Yeah. So you guys will see. I just had a meeting just the other day about it. So we have like pretty much like weekly meetings about this stuff. So but basically, yeah, it's coming. It's in production. We're a couple weeks away from finalizing everything. So you guys will enjoy it. You'll see when it comes out. So
yeah, you put a lot into it. I saw that little preview book you had with you at the con. So that's now for this, was your idea with it that, because the classes fill up, like the online course fills up like pretty dang quick, and so you have people that haven't necessarily been able to get in on one of the online courses or the in-person courses. So was the idea behind this to be able to provide those people with some access as well?
It's a little bit of everything.
And to supplement what they're doing if they are in the online.
Yeah. So it's to give people like a chance to see, basically what we teach. But you're not just learning it from us four, you're learning it from 12 other professionals that's in the industry. And we have plans to do another series, which we're going to have another 12 artists that's going to come in and give their input. And I already have a list of people that's going to be there. I won't reveal the names, but you'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
But
Nice.
basically, the heart and soul of this is that we can all learn art anywhere. Okay, we can go to school. There are tons of books that's out there, and you will learn, 400 ways to draw a finger. Okay, we're not teaching that. We're teaching to eliminate all the other stuff, all the noise, and focus on the core of this. These core tools and core techniques we're teaching, you will carry this over and over and over and over to anywhere you go, any industry, any forum that's out there that you need to plug yourself into and practice or learn or experience or experiment or whatever it is. So you will see that these core techniques is what we use every single day when we're drawing comics, because you're telling a story at a fast pace, and you're telling a visual story at a fast pace. So you have to be able to break it down and break it down in a specific way. And then once you learn how to apply one layer and then the next layer and then the next layer and then the next layer, then you start to see your comic come to life. So we're showing you the cores of those layers. That's basically what we're doing. Because we use this every single day when we're drawing comics, when I'm doing covers, whatever we're doing. It just covers everything from writing to penciling to inking, to coloring. So you'll get a wide range of techniques.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're definitely speaking from experience because you are doing this every day.
Every day.
We were chatting a little bit before we started recording. Like you stay very busy. You do a lot of work, and I think as I predicted, I said I think it's because you're so fast. You end up taking on probably more, maybe than you should sometimes, but. What can you talk about that you're working on right now? Because I know, there's probably stuff that has not been announced that you can't talk about, but what are you working on right now that you are able to talk about?
So I am working on with Frank Miller right now. I'm the very, very tail end of this project. There's a book that they announced the book last year, so I can talk a little bit about it. So you guys will see this new book that's coming out, which I think it will be out by like the end of this year. You guys should
Nice.
see it. Um, and there's a couple other projects here and there that I'm working on. One of them is called Dead Samurai. So I'm working on that one, and I'm still closing that one out too. So I'm almost done with that. But I'm also prepping right now as we speak to get back onto Vampire Hunter D.
Nice.
So the fans of Vampire Hunter D who's seen the first series that I worked on, there's a new batch that we're coming out with, and so you guys will see the new books that's coming out for that. So
Yeah, so you've got your own creator, driven ideas, your projects you're doing for other publishers. Do you take on commissions too? I know you do at cons, but in general, do you keep a commission list going? Or?
Yeah, I have a commission list, and sometimes I can knock out those commissions fast, and sometimes people have to wait 2 months. It's just I'm just too busy, so you got to wait a little bit just before you can get it. 2 months or longer. I can't lie about that one. But yeah, so it can take a little bit of time. It really depends on my schedule, on what's going on, what I'm working on, how much time I have to dedicate to certain thing. Like I just finished a commission last night because I had an extra 2 hours. I was like, all right, let me just knock this out. So I just kind of knocked it out. It really depends.
When it comes to, I alluded to you being fast. I think to give the listeners and the viewers an idea, Ryan I remember you said on the one of the online classes, you alluded to the Frank Miller project, and you said you were so excited about it. I think you said you had done like 3 or 4 pages in one 4 pages in one session because you or one day because you were
Mhm.
so excited about the project.
Yeah, I was super excited. Like, let's just keep going. So I started drawing like 8 in the morning, and it's 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, whoa, I just did 4 pages in one day. This is nuts.
That's
It just
crazy.
kept going and kept going. So
That's like the stuff of legends because we hear about Jack Kirby doing stuff like that and some other artists, but that's 4 is a lot, man. But most people are lucky if they can do one in a day.
yeah, this I've done it. I probably that's a good pace for me. I've done an entire comic in a week before.
Wow.
Actually, five days took me 5 days, and I had a whole comic finished. Um, so I can move fast when I need to. When the fire's on, I'm like, I gotta get cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can move pretty fast, especially at,
Would
conventions when I'm drawing for people. So
would your when it comes to working on a project, would your preference be to go a little slower with it, or is it sometimes you're just so motivated you gotta knock it out, you gotta get the ideas out of your head? Is it a
y-
little combination of both?
yeah, it really depends. There are times when my brain is cooking, and I'm really into it, and no one's disturbed me for the past couple hours, and I don't want to be disturbed for the next couple hours, and I keep going, keep going, keep going. That's when I'm like right in the core of the creative juices. So that's where I want to be. So when I'm there, and I just keep going, and I
Yeah.
can knock out some pretty cool stuff. But then there are times when I'm like, huh, I can't think of anything. My brain's not
Hmm.
working. I can't. What am I going to do? I need some inspiration. So I'll try to find some mental breaks to go to something else. I'll go for walks. So sometimes I'll go to the gym. Sometimes I'll go to the beach. I've gone to the beach and drawn on the beach before. Like I got pages to finish, but I'll do it while I'm looking at the waves. So I'll
Right.
just draw on the beach and just hang out for a little bit. I've done it in parks. I've done it in the movie theater. While the movies are playing, I'm drawing
You're drawing
comics. I'm drawing
everywhere.
comics. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I've done it there. So
That's awesome, man. Well, I want to give you a chance here at the end to promote anything you would like to promote, and also let everybody know where they should be following you on social media and everything.
okay. Well, like I said, we're working on the Comic Pro Bootcamp workbook. So keep an eye out for that. That one will be out this year, by the tail end of this year. So that's going to be super exciting. I'm excited for it, and I know for a fact there are a lot of retailers out there that's super excited for this. So get ready. I'm going to blow some minds on that one. Vampire Hunter D is coming out. I'm super, super excited about that one because I get to design a couple of the creatures that he's fighting in there. So
Nice.
my brain is like, oh man, I can't wait. So I'm working on that. And I'm trying to stay true to the nature of Vampire Hunter D. So when you guys see it, hopefully I've hit that mark. And I travel to Japan a lot, so when I go there, I'm constantly researching and seeing where I can meet up with. And I actually I know the original designer for Vampire Hunter D. So
Oh, nice.
so every time I meet him, he's always drawing a picture for me. He's also, the designer for Ninja Scroll and a whole bunch of other animes that's out there that people are like
Yeah.
really into. Um, so that's coming out. That's one of my path. And also you can, if you want to get a hold of me, my Instagram is probably my number one place that you want to grab me or message me. It's at Ryan BNJMN. That's my handle. I do have a Facebook that has the same handle, and Threads, and
All the
all
various
the other
ones that
various ones that's out there.
that they tell us we need to get, and then it dies down.
Yeah, I know. I went through a phase where I'm like, I'm done with social media.
Yeah.
I started cutting stuff left and right. And Ronnie's the only one I really, really look at is my Instagram. Like, don't mess with me on Facebook because you won't hear from me for 6 months.
I'm the
But
same way. I don't even look at my feed.
don't mess with me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Um,
Awesome, man. Well, listen, I greatly appreciate you coming on because I know how incredibly busy you are. You are within my first 5 people I asked to come on the podcast. Here we are now. It's over a year in officially as of this month, and we're cruising in. We're coming up on 60 episodes soon.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I greatly appreciate you being here today. I would love to have you back on in the future, especially when we can talk more about this Frank Miller project and everything else.
Yeah,
we'll definitely have to make that happen. But hang out with me for a moment while I tell everybody where they can find the podcast. Everybody, you're listening, so you already found the podcast. Good job. If you like the podcast, you want to hit a like, a subscribe, a share with a friend, that would be awesome. You can watch the video version on YouTube, audio version on any major audio podcast platform. We have a lot of awesome guests lined up. Make sure you stick around, keep tuning in, and in the meantime, keep it nerdy.